I'm Beth. Thanks for tuning in to Read Remark. Today we are going to talk about 3 good podcasters who are also 3 good book authors. Thanks again for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about 3 good books written by people who are also podcasters. I don't think I really need to explain podcasting. It's such a prevalent thing and it comes standard on iPhones nowadays, but I'm gonna anyway. Podcasting is kind of like just a digital version of a radio show, so you can download it, listen to it at your leisure. They're great. Number 1 is The United States of Absurdity by the guys who do the podcast called The Dollop. That's Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds. Their podcast is called The Dollop. It's really funny. Basically, they take a certain occurrence that happened in history. One of them explains what happened, while the other one makes jokes throughout the whole thing. It sounds kind of stupid. It is kind of stupid, but it's so much fun. So the same can be said for their book, The United States of Absurdity, except it's a lot more condensed than their podcast is. In the book, they take maybe 2 or 3 pages to talk about an occurrence that happened in history, but of course they add their own sort of comedic flair to it. You're not going to walk away from it being a complete scholar on what happened in history, but you are going to have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more laughs in your life. It sounds like I'm saying everything with a sarcastic edge to it. Sorry about that. The next one, I'm cheating a little bit. It's Freakonomics. This was both a book and a current podcast. In the chicken and egg world, I think the book came first and then the podcast came after. This was by Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner. The 2 Steves. Steve-erino, making copies. The 2 Steves are economists and they talk about these different trends that they're seeing and what sort of effect that has on the economy. And so it's really interesting the things they look at. They take these off-the-wall things and manage to turn them into statistics. They really do the same thing on their podcast. It's fascinating. Usually their podcasts are about a half hour each. They run pretty quickly. And they're really well produced. They take a topic, they talk about it, and they talk about what that means in the world we're living in. The 2 Steves, Stephen Dubner and Stephen Levitt. Check out their Freakonomics book and podcast. Number 3 is another kind of cheat. It's Sarah Vowell. She is a frequent contributor on This American Life, which of course is one of the best podcasts out there. I love, love, love that show. They usually take a topic and then explore it in 3 acts. Sarah Vowell is also a pretty accomplished author. She's written a number of different things like The Wordy Shipmates. The one that I'm going to mention in particular is Assassination Vacation, which is a delightful traipse through the history of our president's murders. She looks particularly at Lincoln, McKinley, and who's the other one? Garfield. That one was tragic. Okay, she looks in particular at Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley's assassinations. It's not really a big history lesson. It's more a look at her as she's going through to these different places that have museums, memorials, statues, signs commemorating what happened there. And it's so fun. It's fun to see how much she loves history and facts and the museum workers. In fact, she mentions that whenever she retires, she does not want to just kick back in style. She wants to be a museum docent, which actually sounds kind of fun now that she mentions it. Sorry, Sarah Vowell, I might steal your idea one day. She's one of those that has such a distinctive and dynamic voice that it might benefit you to listen to the audiobook It might benefit you to listen to the audiobook version of that one. In fact, one of the contributors, I think Brad Bird, just listen to it and you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's funny. I'm going to throw in a bonus one. I know I'm obsessed with lists of 3. I feel like it has a nice symmetry to it, but I feel like I would really be overlooking someone that deserves recognition, not that he has any shortage of recognition if I didn't mention him here. It's Malcolm Gladwell. Who? So, of course, you know him from all the books that he's written that's made him scads of money and gotten him scads of respect. Rightfully so. Blink, The Outliers, The Tipping Point, all sorts of books that he's written that looks at social psychology, that looks at what it takes to be perfect at something. Maybe not perfect, but really, really proficient. Malcolm Gladwell has a way of looking at things that make you say, huh, I never thought of it that way. So he does the same thing in his podcast, Revisionist History. I love this podcast. Now, I gotta say that I don't always agree with what he's saying. For example, in one of his episodes, he talks about satire and how he thinks it needs to be more of a wagging finger. And if people are in on the joke, or if they laugh or get too much mirth from it, then it hasn't really done its job. It's not really effective. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I do like having that different viewpoint to look at. And it's been really interesting listening through the other things. We're fascinated. We'll put on the podcast in the car and then just drive around so we can listen to it. So there you have it. 3 podcasts plus a bonus. The Dollop and the United States of Absurdity. Freakonomics and Freakonomics. This American Life and Assassination Vacation, and then of course Revisionist History and Blink, Outliers, Tipping Point, etc., 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 all of his other books. Thank you so much for joining. Let me know if you have any good podcast recommendations or good book recommendations. I'm all ears. Thank you again. Bye.